Hi everyone, I'm Lisa Teachman, Chief Meteorologist for the KSN Storm Track 3 Weather Team, and welcome to Listen to Lisa. This is going to be a digital show that's dedicated to all things weather that we've experienced as Kansans, but also where our weather patterns going to be taking us in the short term, plus we might even have a few guests along the way. And my first guest, I could think of nobody else but meteorologist Lucy Doll to join us. We want to know a little bit more about Lucy.
I'm excited to be the first guest. Thank you for having me on the flagship episode here to start things off. I'm excited to dive into what we're going to talk about today.
Well, you are welcome. And if you ever watch our severe weather coverage, Lucy is probably about 95% of the time with me.
Yes, we're the tag team during all of that.
And Lucy Lucy and I have been connected for a really, really long time, even though we've only worked together for almost 3 years now?
3 years yesterday, actually.
3 years. Congratulations on 3 years here at KSN. And we hope for many, many more.
Yes, me
because
too.
Lucy, you hate to say that Lucy is just a doll, but you are just an absolutely wonderful, wonderful person to work with and so helpful with everything. And that's why I love having you in the Weather Center whenever we have severe weather coverage. And I've heard great things from viewers in the public where they'll come up to me. There was one lady at the gas station one evening, and she said, hey, the day that you were tracking those wedge tornadoes on that Sunday, you did such a great job, and Lucy, she did a really good job too. So there are a lot of people that are complimenting you and your hard work that you do here at KSN.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. I'm just trying to learn the best I can as we go through it. I feel like working with you is just constantly osmosising everything that I could ever want to learn about severe weather. I feel like the last 3 years I've come leaps and bounds. I'm excited to keep growing and keep learning.
And if you ever notice that there may be some similarities into some of the things that I say, some of the things that I do that Lucy does, and of course I call it osmosis.
Yeah.
The more that you work with somebody, the more that you're going to be able to take like little bits and pieces from Jack Maney, from Jack Boston and Ronell, and of course Lucy. But Lucy and I go way back before we even knew each other in person.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that.
I grew up watching you when you were on air in Kansas City doing mornings. That was before I even really knew I wanted to be an on-air meteorologist. That's when I just thought weather was cool. And I was one of those weather nerds watching every single morning broadcast, evening broadcast, anything I could digest weather-wise. And then when I got to college, my mentor is actually Lisa's mentee. So that is a degree of separation there. But I also watched Lisa to learn what to do to be an on-air meteorologist. So a lot of my learning how to do everything that I do now came from watching Lisa, as well as other mentors I've had. But that's why I think I have a lot of similarities with how I describe things, or even our hand motions. My mom sometimes says I do the Lisa point, which is a certain way I move my hand.
Or when I do the thumb.
The thumb. That's the, that one's from someone in Kansas City though, right?
The thumb? I don't think so. I've always done the thumb.
Oh, Matt Beckwith, who is my mentor and your mentee, he does that too. That's what I'm thinking of with that one.
So he probably took it from me.
And then I took it from both of you. So
yeah. Well, we have a lot of things to break down that's happened here recently in the weather world. And one thing that comes to mind, I want to talk about Chief Meteorologist Gary England. He was a well-known chief meteorologist from the Oklahoma City market. I think he worked at 9 News in Oklahoma City for 41 years.
That is a long time.
I want to say he started in the late 1960s, and he was one that started a commercial Doppler radar at the TV station.
Which was unheard of.
It was unheard of in the early 1980s. And then he also helped to work with other technology to where, like when we're on TV and we show you storm tracker radar and we show you where exactly that storm is going and at what time it's going to arrive, he actually worked with the developers for that technology.
Wow, I did not know that.
And he's been part of so many different big severe weather outbreaks. I remember the May 3rd, 1999 outbreak. I mean, in Oklahoma City, still, the most powerful tornado that we've had recorded on Doppler radar, and that was that storm. And I've heard from a lot of viewers that have been commenting on his passing. I think he was 85 years old when he had passed. And he's been retired from Oklahoma City TV for about the last 12 years. After the back-to-back El Reno and more tornadoes of 2013, I think after that, from what I heard from folks, was he just called up his wife and said, I'm done. I'm ready to retire. And so he's had a few years to enjoy retirement until he passed away this week. But a lot of viewers have commented about what he said on May 3rd, 1999, which was, the best way to survive this tornado is for you folks to be underground. And, back in 1999, we have so much more technology that has evolved since then. We have the WIAs that are on our phone, which is that annoying sound that goes off that could wake you up in the middle of the night, but it tells you that you need to take action. If you're having a destructive type of thunderstorm that's coming into your neck of the woods, or you have a tornado warning. We hear that when it comes to the Amber Alerts. I mean, those are the type of warnings on your phone that you need to make sure that you're taking seriously.
And they're that annoying sound that you're going to pay attention to for a reason. You don't want to turn those off on your phone. The reason that they're trying to get your attention is because it's something that you need to be paying attention to.
That's right. And Gary England has had such a huge impact on so many meteorologists for multiple decades. And I say this as Gary England was not just a meteorologist that was surrounded by state lines, but actually his care, his compassion, and also his determination to make sure that Oklahomans were safe spread across those state lines. We heard about it here in Kansas. They heard about it in Alabama. They've heard about it all over the entire world.
Yeah, he was definitely a legend for sure. I've read a few books about the different severe weather outbreaks that had happened, the Moore tornado included in that, and all of them have interviews with him about talking about some of how he felt during those events. And I remember one specific one talking, like you mentioned, Lisa, about after the back-to-back storms, him just deciding that it was his time to retire. So it's really moving to hear someone who's been in the career that long talk about those kinds of events.
And one of our colleagues, meteorologist Jack Maney, he was born in the Oklahoma City metro, and he watched Gary all the time. Yeah. And I texted him the night that all of us were finding out that he had passed away. And I said, hey, I just wanted to let you know I'm hearing about this on X right now. And I know that Gary had a huge impact on Jack Maney. And this is actually Jack when he was much, much younger. And he is pointing out Gary England on this TV. An absolutely adorable shot, but it also goes to show you just the impact that Gary England had on meteorologist Jack Maney and his career. And one of the future episodes of Listen to Lisa, of course, I'm going to be bringing Jack on. I'm going to be bringing other weather folks on so that way we could get to know them a little bit more. Now, Lucy, if we look back at some of the things that's happened over the last week, we had the
busy week.
We had the flash flood emergency for Wichita, for El Dorado. We are still doing a lot of cleanup in the El Dorado area associated with that flooding. But when we take a look at some of the flooding that we've had, but we're also going to take a look at tornadoes. And we've had our storm trackers quite busy this spring.
I think everyone's been quite busy this spring if you're in the weather field, no matter where you are. But our trackers especially, have been out and about. And
this tornado, this was actually captured just about a week ago. And
yes, last Sunday.
Storm tracker John Moon, he and I have worked together for quite some time. He captured this tornado. He saw 5 tornadoes.
He had a good day. Sunday.
He did. Although he did have some issues where he encountered some tennis ball size hail. He broke out his windshield. So, I'm hoping that maybe we could also have John Moon, maybe even some of our storm trackers that will be on one of our future episodes of Listen to Lisa. But you take a look at this tornado here. This was in Cimarron County. This happened last Sunday, and this was the first tornado that it had spawned. And John called me and he says, hey, I'm watching this rapidly rotating wall cloud. Looks like we're getting a funnel. And then bam, it touches down.
It was really cool to be able to pull up his feed from where we source it from and just watch, because this picture particularly was not when it was touching the ground yet, but it was getting there. We got to watch the whole life cycle from John's feed, and that was really, really interesting. And it was just such a visible storm too.
And we had another tornado warning that was issued farther to the east.
Yes.
It was over toward Beaver County that day.
That one was not confirmed at any point. It was radar indicated, but it was with the same group of storms that were moving into the Oklahoma Panhandle that Sunday.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about the rainfall that we have had. June rainfall so far. Holy cow. Holy smokes. It's been good.
It has been good to see all of the rain. My backyard has not loved it with the amount of flooding that we've had here in Sedgwick County, but my plants have loved it. And I'm sure plenty of other people are feeling the same way.
I don't know about your dog. Okay, so Lucy has 2 animals. She has a cat. Your cat's name is?
Mongo Jerry. Fuzzy Pants, Boot Daddy McGee.
Say that again?
His full name is Mongo Jerry, Fuzzy Pants, Boot Daddy McGee, but I call him Mongo.
And your pup?
Gertie Girl.
Gertie Girl. We love Gertie.
We love Gertie Girl.
Now, when we had the flash flood emergency for Sedgwick County and
Yes.
for Wichita, when you went home, you were hearing all these reports
Yes.
about what was going on with the weather. And, you know, here you are, you're doing a job, but then you're seeing all these reports that's happening and you're like,
Worried.
you're worried.
Yeah, because my girl's at home waiting for me. And I get home and she was the happiest pump in the whole world. We had a small lake in our backyard and she was just splashing around. She thought she got to go to the pool, I guess, because she was enjoying the water and she was so muddy and so stinky after coming back inside. But at least she had fun. Meanwhile, I was heartbroken, worried about her all day.
How long did it take the water to actually go down in the back? Because you showed me
I
this
had
small
an-
area.
yeah.
How long did that take?
So I was able to dig a little trench, and a lot of the debris had, from the mud sweeping through my backyard and through that small area, had piled up. And where we have an irrigation thing for that to happen, my landlord texted me to make sure that I cleaned it out. And I said, "Oh, I will clean it out right now." And that let it drain, but it took a while. It took probably 2 hours for all of it to drain out. And then it filled up again the next time it rained, I believe that weekend. So
And I think we're going to have a little bit more rainfall that's
Yes.
going to be on the way, because the type of pattern that we're entering into, we have this dome of high pressure that's just to the southwest of us, and this dome of high pressure, it tries to inch closer to us, and as it does so, we start to warm up, and pretty soon we're going to have more heat. We've already had more humidity. Today has just been
Gross.
one of those gross days, and get used to it because it's summer, right? It's summer in Kansas. We get used to that, mosquitoes and all that kind of thing. But with this area of high pressure, we're going to have these storms that are going to concentrate around this area of high pressure, and they form these largely evening, overnight, and morning complexes of thunderstorms. And we could get some hail, we could get some high winds, but also some pretty heavy rains that could be associated with that. When you take a look at the rainfall that we've had for June so far, when it comes to Wichita, Dodge City, Goodland, and Salina, everybody's been above average except for Salina. We need more rainfall across northern Kansas. Now, it's helping us out with Cheney Reservoir.
significantly. This is
Significantly.
good numbers to see here for Cheney.
And when it comes to Cheney, this has not been this high since August of 2023.
Dang.
So let's hope that we can get a little bit more moisture that could help us out. And this is our latest drought monitor. No drought evident across southern Kansas, but near and to the north of the I-70 corridor, we need a lot more rainfall.
And that does line up with Salina being one of our only spots sitting below average for the rain. So it's those areas along and north of the I-70 corridor that have missed out on the bulk of the moisture. But here, as we move into the next few days, we're going to enter back into that pattern you mentioned with the ring of fire, and that should bring all of us a bit more moisture.
And the yellow here is going to be the abnormally dry.
Yes.
Then you start to get into more of like the golden color, and that's going to be where you have the worst of the drought. Now, it's nice to see no red on this. Nice to see no red.
Every summer that I have worked here, I feel like we get into that very extreme level of drought, except for this summer. So I'm going to knock on wood that we keep that going, because that is nice to see.
It really is. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at where things are going to be going when it comes to our weather. We have the unsettled pattern that's happening this weekend that's also going to extend into the next, right from after Father's Day, but then things start to get a little bit drier. It's going to feel like summertime, 80s, 90s. Some temperatures next week are going to be into the middle 90s, so it's going to be pretty warm for us. But also once we get into the mid and later portions of next week, we're actually going to be encountering more of a drier pattern, but also temperatures, they are going to be warm. They're going to be above average for this time of year. Our average high for Wichita right now is right around 88 degrees. And we're coming closer to the kickoff of summer. We are now officially 7 days away. The official start of summer will be June 20th for us here in Kansas at 9:41 p.m. I have to ask you, Lucy,
Yes.
what is your favorite season?
My favorite season is fall, mainly because of my birthday being in fall, but summer's a close second. I just like going to the pool.
I have to admit, I think I like spring because I'm a huge fan of thunderstorms. I don't want thunderstorms that are going to cause any damage or anything like that, but I like tracking thunderstorms. That's my bread and butter. What's your bread and butter? What's your favorite thing to forecast?
My favorite thing to forecast would be probably tropical weather, which does not help me living here in Kansas, but I lived in Louisiana before I was here. I was in Monroe, Louisiana for 2 years, and I don't think I'd ever fully understood how much goes into tropical forecasting until I got there. And it was such a challenge, something to tackle and something to overcome and learn about, that I've really, really enjoyed how long you can track a storm for, because it's not like Kansas where the tornado is going to pop up and then move away in about a half hour most. You're taking multiple days to track where that tropical system is going. And we're in hurricane season now. It's been quiet so far thanks to the Saharan dust, but we're getting in it, Lisa.
So when I worked in West Virginia, I got a little bit of the tropics.
Yes.
Because in West Virginia, you have no airflow. You want to talk about humidity? That's definitely a humid atmosphere. And then when I moved across the mountains, I went over to Baltimore. And I think I lived through one tropical storm. How many tropical storms, how many hurricanes, or which ones really stick out in your mind when you worked in Louisiana?
So 2020 was my first year in Louisiana, and that was the year that 5 named tropical storms and hurricanes hit the state of Louisiana. The major one was Hurricane Laura. It made landfall as a Category 4, and Lake Charles completely wiped out the city of Lake Charles and then continued north. So I was in Monroe, which is about central Louisiana, maybe more so on the north side for some of the parishes that we covered, and we covered a few counties in Arkansas. And Hurricane Laura was still a Category 2 when it approached our southernmost parishes in our viewing area, and then it was a Category 1 when it moved through Monroe, Louisiana. And I was at work for, I think, 48 hours tracking that hurricane coming through, Lisa, and then I got to go home, and I couldn't get home because the bayou was so flooded that all of the roads that went into my neighborhood where my apartment was weren't available, or they were all flooded, and there was a huge tree down there, I remember too. I remember just being so tired of wanting to go home, but I turned around, and we had air mattresses at the station for that exact reason.
You're like, I'm just going back to the
station.
station.
I'm just going to go to sleep in the conference room.
Yeah, I don't blame you there. Now, would you ever go back and work in a tropical place again? I mean, you say that you love tropical weather.
Yeah.
You know, when we get into tropical season and we start to see all of these hurricanes and stuff, I've had a little bit of working in that type of environment, but I trust you wholeheartedly, and I grabbed some information from you just because of your experiences. Because it's much different when, as a meteorologist, when you're actually physically in it, there are things that you learn and things that you pick up, maybe from other meteorologists that you're working with, or having lived in that area. You know what the people are dealing with. And I've lived so much on the plains that this is what I'm more familiar with.
I think I would go back to somewhere tropical just because I enjoy that kind of forecasting. It was not fun to live through. It was not fun to live through Hurricane Ida was the other one that moved through our viewing area that caused a lot of damage to areas along the Mississippi River. And the aftermath of it was so heart-wrenching. You're just seeing entire communities being impacted, that was really difficult, but also knowing that I was able to provide information ahead of time that could help those people was something that I felt very validated in and felt fulfilling within my forecasting. And as you mentioned, not understanding where you were, like the first time I moved to Louisiana, I remember my first tornado warning that I covered by myself on air. I said, get to your basement, get to your cellar, and our news director came in afterwards and he said, no one here has a basement or a cellar because we live in the swamp. It's going to be flooded. And I didn't even consider that, not having basements. So that was something really interesting that I had to learn about.
I learned that in West Virginia. I really did. Because in West Virginia, when I first got on air, I said, hey, listen to the tornado sirens, get to your basement. Well, we don't have basements here. We don't have tornado sirens.
They didn't have the tornado sirens in Louisiana either, and I didn't even think about that.
Yep. So it's all about living and learning when it comes to the different things that you do when you're on air.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I have to ask you also a few more questions here. What would you say is the most challenging part of being a meteorologist?
In Kansas or in general?
Yeah. Just in general. And it could be Kansas.
Everything
We've got the time. Go for
changes so quickly. We were talking about this today. Yesterday, our models were not really wanting to show that much rain coming through tonight, and now we come into work today, and everything has flipped itself over and wanting to bring us a lot of rain overnight. So I think having to keep up with the inconsistencies or how just Mother Nature is going to be changing things, and sometimes everything could set up for us to have a severe event, and it just doesn't happen, and we don't really know why, or we understand why, but we don't think about how that could potentially happen. I'm thinking about that high risk day that we had last year, Lisa, and it all just happened in Oklahoma.
Yep.
We had everything that was going to happen, right? We were just off by a couple 100 miles.
Yep. And that was actually the saving grace for us because we had thunderstorms that were developing across the state line into Oklahoma, and if that didn't happen, then we would have had thunderstorms around
And
here.
it could have been a very bad day
It could
in
have.
Kansas.
What people don't realize is that one thing could have an impact on something else. And that's why you always got to make sure that you're paying attention to what's happening with the weather, because things are constantly changing. And we're going to be on our toes here over the next few weeks, especially when it comes to what's known as MCS season, where you get these complexes that will roll through during the evenings and overnights. As a kid growing up here, I didn't realize what MCS season was. And we would get awakened by these thunderstorms.
I loved it.
Would have such loud thunder. And then when I become a meteorologist, I learn all there is about it. And I think if I were to ever go back to school and go into research and want to get a PhD or something, I think I would want to study overnight complexes. And I've mentioned that to meteorologist Jack Boston before, and he says, "Oh yeah, MCS season. That'd be really,
Do you
really
want
cool."
to explain what MCS stands for?
MCS. Okay, well, MCS or MCC.
CC, yeah.
MCS stands for Mesoscale Convective System, MCS, or MCC, Mesoscale Convective Complex. We'll never throw those terms out on air. As meteorologists, we should always explain what those are and what those mean. So if ever you hear some random term that's thrown out there, just know that we definitely need to make sure that we're
That's
explaining
us speaking inside baseball.
That is inside baseball. That's right. Well, it's not inside baseball. It's all about meteorology and meteorologist Lucy Doll. And Lucy, we have some pictures from the past that we want to
Blast
go
from
through.
the past. So
Now, why did you want to become a meteorologist?
I was absolutely terrified of the movie Wizard of Oz. And my brother went through a phase where he wanted to watch the Wizard of Oz every single day. I know lots of little kids go through a phase where it's the same movie all the time. One of the kids I nannied in college, we watched Space Jam every single day. So that was for my brother, Wizard of Oz. And I don't know why the tornado part scared me so badly. I couldn't watch it. I would go hide. The monkeys were fine. I was okay with the flying monkeys. I was okay with the Wicked Witch of the West, but the tornado part was so scary. And it got to the point where we had sirens in Kansas City tested every, I believe it was the first Monday of the month.
I think it was the first Wednesday of
of
every
the
month.
month.
When I worked in Kansas City.
Yeah, that must be right then. It's
I
Mondays
think
here.
It's Mondays here every single
week.
Monday, unless there's inclement weather. If there's bad weather, then there's not going to be any sirens. But it was the first Wednesday of every month, and I found that quite interesting. When I grew up here, and then when I went over to Kansas City, that they only did it once a month. And I think it's probably because Kansas City is more of a flood town,
Yes.
as opposed to a tornado town. But we've had some pretty big tornadoes in the Northland. The 2003, 2004 Northland tornado.
Yes, I think it was 2003.
I think it was 2003 as well. And we've had some other tornadoes over the years as well around the Kansas City area. There was one that I remember covering. It was either 2008 or 2009. It was the Gladstone tornado.
There was one 2 weeks ago.
And that was 2 weeks ago. And you were quite concerned about that because
my mom called me. She was concerned because usually I'll text her ahead of time and be like, hey, you guys are in a tornado watch, which I did. But we were dealing with flooding here. Yeah. It was that Tuesday that there was a lot of flooding here. And my mom just kept calling me.
Yeah.
My mom just kept calling me, and I finally answered the phone. I was like, hi. And she goes, I can see a tornado from my house. And I said, oh, let me look at what's going on. It ended up moving closer towards the Truman Sports Complex, which is where the Chiefs Arrowhead Stadium is. I believe that they went with an EF1 for when it moved through Independence.
EFU, then it went to EF1.
By the Arrowhead Stadium, and then EF1 by Independence. So that was crazy.
It really was. And if you're familiar with I-70, where the Truman Sports Complex is, it's going to be 435 and also I-70. And one of the stations that I worked at is right there. Yes. I mean, it's at 63rd Street and 435, which is just a few miles to the south of where the Truman Sports Complex is. But
yeah, if I was a small child when that was happening, I would be in my basement crying. I used to have panic attacks when they would test the sirens, and my dad and mom would have to keep me home from school on Wednesdays until after the sirens were done. And my dad, back to your question about why did I want to be a meteorologist, my dad was like, we're not dealing with this. I can't have you freaking out every single time that it rains. It wasn't even a storm. It would be raining and I'd be scared. So we went to the library and we checked out every single weather book that they had at the Johnson County Community Library. And I turned my fear into fascination, and then that fascination into a career.
And then for me, I was just scared to death of storms. I think it was probably the Heston tornado of 1990 that did it for me. And then a year after my hometown hit, April 26, 1991, and then again May 3rd, 1999. And I remember after that Heston tornado, how dark the northern sky was for hours. And I remember after that, anytime the tornado sirens would go off, I would pack up all my Barbie dolls on my Hot Wheels cars and say, "Hey, Mom, let's go to Grandma's house," because Grandma had the basement.
The basement.
We didn't have the basement where we lived in Hungerford. And we have a lot of similarities when it comes to how we were scared of storms like that. And the Wizard of Oz, too. Because they used to air the Wizard of Oz every single spring, and that just heightened that anxiety.
I remember talking about this on my first phone interview with you. I think it was supposed to be like a 20-minute phone interview, and I think we ended up talking 2 hours probably because we just kept talking about the Wizard of Oz and other things that we ended up having in common.
Yeah, and it's also weird too because I think everything happens for a reason.
Oh, 100%.
And when I reached out to you, I think it was because I hardly ever sleep. I need to get better about that.
We're working on it.
But it was 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and you were interviewing someplace else
For the morning show, so I was awake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And where were you interviewing?
I was interviewing in Starkville, Mississippi.
Starkville. I know
Yes.
Starkville, Mississippi State University.
Exactly.
Yeah, as a MSU grad, I remember that. Okay, well, we have some other pictures, and I have to bring these pictures up and tell us here what we're looking at because I know when's your graduation from Mizzou.
Yes. So top left would be when I studied abroad in Peru for a summer. I do have a minor in Spanish. I need to get better about practicing my Spanish, but our Telemundo anchor Eric here practices with me quite frequently. And then I have a picture in the middle there on the bottom with your mentee, Matt Beckwith, who is my mentor. He is the chief meteorologist at KOMU 8 in Columbia,
See, I've
Missouri.
known Maddie since he was 10.
I've known
since he was
Maddie
like
since I
knee-high.
was a freshman.
Since he was about knee-high to a prairie dog, and I'm so proud of him, and I'm so proud of you too, and just to see how the torch is passed on from one generation of meteorologists to another.
Yeah, and he's now in that role helping other meteorologists learn at Mizzou and passing them forward. So I'm proud of him every day. But it's also very weird because he was my RA freshman year, and now he's like one of my best friends. And when I talk to my other friends that live on my floor, and I say Matt, they go, "Do you mean our RA Matt Beckwith?" And I'm like, "Yes, he is one of my best friends." And like, that's so funny. But we ended up having so many classes together. You just become friends when your degree program is that small.
But the thing is, you didn't originally want to become a meteorologist.
I did not. I wanted to work for the National Geographic and go to Antarctica and take pictures of penguins or do the, what was the Disney one? The Earth
Oh, like
Beautiful Planet, something like that.
Yeah. I know which one you're talking about.
We have Beautiful America on NBC that is very good. That airs on Sundays, or it used to, and I love those as well. But I wanted to work for National Geographic and be an environmental journalist. And I remember my physics teacher in high school was also my track coach, so we were pretty close. And him just pushing me, "You're so good at physics, you're so good at math, why don't you try to do something that helps bring together everything you want to do," which is educate about the environment, teach about how our Earth is changing and how our Earth works and the ecosystems and everything like that. And he really pushed me to at least look into meteorology because it was something I had this passion way back in the back of my head from when I was little. And he really, really pushed me to enroll in both at Mizzou. And then I went to summer welcome before my freshman year started, and I changed my major there at summer welcome because the meteorology program there was just so perfect. It just felt like home.
Now, this is when you went to work at KNOE.
Yes.
In
Monroe, Louisiana, which is where Duck Dynasty is filmed. That's where those guys live. They are huge in the community there. They do a lot for the community.
Did you ever see any of them?
I did. They came to the station. They did, after Hurricane Laura, we did a phone drive. I can't remember what those are called.
Like a telethon.
Telethon, that's it, to help raise money for relief victims down there in Lake Charles, and they came and did the telethon. But my dad, every time he'd come visit me, he would go, "Is that the Duck Dynasty guy?" And we'd just be at Walmart, and I'd have to be like, "No, that's just what the people here dress like. Lots of camo, lots of beards." I loved it. It was great. Everyone there, very Southern hospitality. Louisiana is the state logo, like how Kansas is the sunflower state. Louisiana is sportsman's paradise, and a lot of outdoors. I hiked, I think, every single day I was off. Whether it be in southern Arkansas or across northern Louisiana. That picture there is me kayaking in Lake Bayou, or Black Bayou Lake. A bayou is a body of water that can also be a lake, but it's basically a pond. and the water's stagnant. It's not flowing. And then the food was so good. That's crawfish there, which we're out of crawfish season now. But every year around crawfish season, I get jealous of all my friends down south sending me pictures.
And then here it is when you come to KSN.
Yes, that's us at summer road trip last year. And then I really I don't know why I'm obsessed with the mural going into the studio. That's what those big doors are on air at KSN News. I just thought it was so fun that we made it pretty to go in. And it's like you're walking into the set, like you're here kind of vibe. And then that is Zena and Asia when we were the weekend crew for a while before Zena went back to reporting. Just a lot of fun. Everyone here has been great.
And then I love that photo of you and me.
I have that printed.
That was last year's sundown parade.
Parade at Riverfest, yes. The year before that was when it poured rain, but that year I don't think it poured on us.
Yeah, I don't think we had that much rain in that one. And then here's your babies.
Here's my babies. There's my Louisiana hound dog, Gertie Girl. One of my bosses at my last station actually found her on their property, just running around their backyard. I think someone just jumped her over the fence because they had really fancy, nice, purebred hunting dogs.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, they have dogs. If we jump her over the fence, she'll at least be taken care of. And I met her, and wasn't going to get it. I was going to get a dog when I moved here.
Yeah.
Because I got her 5 days before I moved to Kansas.
And you know what I call that?
Fate.
I call that fate. I call that meant to be.
Yep.
It was, you were meant to have her.
Yes.
You were.
So her full name is Hurricane Gertrude because the first day I met her, she wouldn't stop chasing her tail in circles. She's a bit of a brat now. That picture on the left was after she rolled on my bed when she had mud all over her paws. And then in the middle is Mongo Jerry. It's his house. I just pay the rent. So
Yep. That's
he's
the way
the king
cats
of the castle.
Are.
Yeah.
What do they say? Man's best friend, but cats have staff.
Yeah, there you go. I'm his staff. He will wake me up in the middle of the night screaming for fancy feast. This is just me exploring Kansas. I really love to be outdoors. So that upper left is me hiking through Tallgrass National Prairie. I'm pointing towards the buffalo that are in the background because they decided to take up the trail. And I was planning on doing a 6-mile loop hike. And I hiked 4 miles, and then the buffalo were on the trail, and I had to turn around and hike 4 miles back. So it turned out to be an 8-mile out and back rather than a loop. But it was a great day. I love that place. If you haven't been out, try to remember what county it's in. I'm pretty sure it's north of Reno County. I don't think it's in Reno County.
I'll have to look at that one.
Tallgrass National Prairie.
It would be farther northeast.
Oh, is it northeast?
Maybe Chase County?
Chase County, that sounds right. Chase or Marion.
Marion?
Up
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
Would recommend. They just redid the visitor center there. Then Gertie and I over, I can't remember. I think that's over by Tallgrass National Prairie.
You like to get out a lot.
I like to get out.
You
love
to
to
do
be
the
out
hikes.
and hiking or at home and reading. Those are my two. I'm either going or sitting and reading.
Yeah. I don't know if you want everybody to know about
Sure.
this, but I am going to say this. When we had the Grinnell tornado a few weeks back.
Yeah.
We had the Grinnell tornado. We had the Plevna tornado. First time I've ever had to go on air and say a tornado emergency for multiple towns because of these wedges that were coming in.
Never seen a debris ball like that on radar ever.
But Lucy has such a big heart. They've been asking for books in Grinnell.
Yes.
And you're sending them some books.
I did. I actually picked up more yesterday.
Oh.
The library at the elementary school was hit. And if I remember correctly, I believe that the school library was also the public library. Like you could go check out books there. And they just have been asking for donations. The State Library of Kansas shared it. And I said, these are like, I love reading. It's my escape. It's been something that's been really important to me my whole life, something my grandma instilled in me when I was little that I keep. You can always just escape into a book. And I feel like everyone should have that opportunity. So the fact that these kids, their whole library is gone, I was a library kid. I lived in the library in elementary school. So I went and I found a couple of my favorite books from when I was little. And then a couple of the places here in town have had sales over the last weekend.
Yeah.
Just because they're cleaning out their stock, getting ready for summer books. So I went and I stocked up. And a couple people here at the station are also bringing in books that just extra ones that they haven't read in a while that we're all going to send.
Yeah, and I'm gonna add some to that as well because there are some books that I would love to also send to Grinnell. And
And I shared that on my Facebook page if anyone else is interested.
just search out our Facebook page.
Yes, or the State Library of Kansas also had it.
Wonderful.
But they're asking for new and gently used books.
Wonderful. Well, Lucy, I have to ask you, what is your favorite part of our job as
Our
a
favorite
meteorologist?
part of our job,
Yeah.
every day we get to do something different. Every single day I get to get up, and it's like a puzzle. The forecast is like a puzzle. Every different thing goes into it. We talked earlier about how much depends on certain things, and everything just piggybacks off of each other, and trying to unravel it and figure out what the atmosphere is going to do based on the information that you're given. I don't want to say it's fun, but it is fun. It's a great time, whether it be a very warm ridge of high pressure and we're stuck with 100-degree days every day, getting to figure out when that's going to break, what's important. I also like knowing that what I'm doing makes a difference. And even if it's just helping someone remember to put on sunscreen, or helping mom remember to pack extra water for her kids before they go to soccer practice because it's going to be hot. I'm really stuck on it's going to be hot right now.
And I've always said that whenever we get to sit down and we look through the computer models, that it always is like Christmas morning.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
It's always like Christmas morning, because you're thinking, well, how is this complex is going to move? How are things going to change? Because that's the way our atmosphere is. That's our reality, is that the atmosphere is constantly changing. And something could happen a state away. Something could happen here locally that could completely change how things are going to play out.
If all that moisture goes south, we're not going to get the storms like what happened last year on that high risk day. Or it could be the opposite.
Or the thing is that, you could be looking at one model, you could look at another model, and they're never going to be in sync with each other. They're always going to say something different. Rarely do you have these computer models that are together. And that's also what's important about having the intellect and the instinct of those that work here. And the longer that you work here, the more that you know, and the better forecaster that you will be. And here you are, 3 years. Yeah. 3 years here.
3 years
in
yesterday.
And I'm not going to let you go to some place that's tropical. I'm not going to let you. I'm not going to let you go.
I say that I would like it, but I think I like forecasting there from a distance. I don't know if I would want to be back in the trenches. Shout out to everyone who wants to do that and wants to be out there in the Gulf. Not me. I think I did my time.
Yep. Well, I'll tell you what, the KSN crew is going to be on the road here coming up. It is the KSN summer road trip, and this takes an entire team for us to do. You see some of us that are out in the field, but you have other folks that are back here at the station that are helping to keep the train on the tracks, coming up with a lot of the forecasts, which we have forecast discussions, creating the graphics back here. There's a lot of things that we have to do on the web in order to constantly put the information out for you. And Lucy's going to be backing me up during the KSN summer road trip. Jack Maney is going to be backing up Ronell in the morning. We're going to have Jack Boston here, so we're going to have a good old time. This is a look at some of the places that we're going to be. This is day one for us. Come on out, whether it's Haven, Heston, Cottonwood Falls, and Salina. We'll be doing our 4:35 and also 6 o'clock broadcast from Salina. And then the next day, the morning crew will be in Salina from 6 to 8 a.m. And then, we're also going to be there from 6 to 8 a.m. as well. And then Minneapolis, we're going to be in Great Bend. We're going to be in Wilson. We're going to end the day in Russell. Then the next day, the morning crew is going to be in Russell. We'll go over to Waukene, Colby, Tribune, and Holcomb. I know Jeff's looking forward to going over to Holcomb and learning a whole lot more. And then on day 4, it's Garden City, Hugoton, Liberal, Meade, followed up by Spearville. But I'm going to add Fowler into this.
Yes.
I'm going to go for Meade, then I'm going to go over to Fowler, and then I'm going to go over to Spearville. So I may be taking off for Meade a little bit earlier. I may be a little bit late to Spearville, so folks, don't worry. Come out early to Meade.
Yes.
Come and see me. And then Ronell and I are going to take off for Fowler, because about a year ago I was asked to go to Fowler and do something in person, and I wasn't able to do that. And this year they said, hey, can you come back? Can you do something in person?
And it worked out.
So it worked out. I said, hey, would this time work because we can go after Meade, before Spearville, and come and see y'all. So I'm looking forward to also adding Fowler to our list. The rest of the crew is not going to be there. It's just going to be me and Ronell. And then on day 5, we're going to have Dodge City, Haviland, Kingman, Garden Plain, Rose Hill, and Andover. Andover's having a huge celebration, and that should be a really, really good time. That's going to be ending in a concert.
Well, it's going to be a party at every single stop.
It is. It is.
You guys have a blast. I get jealous sometimes watching the live shots because everyone's just having so much fun out there.
Well, you know what? what? On some of the morning ones, maybe you should just be like, hey, get up a little bit earlier, come see us.
Drive all the way out. Maybe,
twist your
you know
arm
what?
a little bit, twist your arm.
Don't tempt me with a good time.
Yeah, I'll tempt you with a good time all the time. Well, Lucy, thank you so much for coming on the very first Listen to Lisa show, and we're going to have a lot more. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining us for Listen to Lisa, and make sure you visit us frequently because we will have more guests that will be on. We need to talk to the two Jacks. We're going to need to talk to Ronell, and I have a feeling there's going to be other people here locally, and maybe even some from KSN's past. You never know.
Fun.
That might also be able to make a stop by Listen to Lisa. Everybody take care. Please stay safe and always make sure that you're being weather aware.